How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ YouTube channel. And Brendan and Sterling coming at you for championship weekend. It should be an interesting couple of games here. We have pretty much what is now the four best teams, but I think if you would have put these four teams and said these were the four teams that were going to make the championship games, I would think we would all say three of them likely to make it, and then one is no.
Yeah, I mean, Jaden Daniels has put together what could pretty easily be said is the best rookie season we've ever seen
Yeah.
by a quarterback.
Oh,
You know,
I don't think it's a debate anymore.
no, I think with that win last week, that solidified him passing, what many believed was Ben Roethlisberger prior to that as having the best rookie appearance. Um, he's just been doing some phenomenal things. They beat up on
Detroit.
Detroit last week, which was surprising for everybody, I think.
I think we all looked at that game last week and said it was going to be a high scoring game. We all knew Detroit's defense was incredibly injured. They had 6 week 1 starters out, and then they had 8 replacements also out at that point. So when you're basically going in with guys who are third, sometimes even fourth string players, it makes it really difficult. And the Lions didn't do themselves any favors in that game as well. Like they were turning the ball over. Jared Goff didn't play particularly great, but the Commanders 100% deserve to win that game. At the end of the day, they 100% deserve to win that football game. And they're going up against an Eagles team that right now is also a little bit banged up. But the healthiest guy on their team right now also happens to be probably their best guy, and that being Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean the Eagles coming into this that's going to be the key for their game on offense is utilizing Saquon Barkley because the Commanders don't have a phenomenal defense. So they
Yeah.
should be able to, you know, do something. And if I'm not mistaken, Saquon had a pretty good game both times these teams met already this season. And so that has to be the key on offense, especially with Jalen Hurts having some issues last week with his knee. And so there was some concerns there. On the other side of the ball, that Eagles defense has been playing really well.
They've been
They
taking
they
over games.
they basically won that game for them against the Rams at the end. The Rams were driving, could have scored, and Jalen Carter really just took the game over at that point. It was almost like watching Aaron Donald to an extent, how he was just breaking up every play. And so that's something that the Commanders are going to have to watch out for this week too.
Yeah, and going back to what you're saying with the 2 games with Saquon Barkley when he did play the Commanders this year, in the first game he had 26 carries, 146 rushing yards, 2 rushing TDs, 2 catches for 52 yards in a big one. And then the last time these two teams played in week 17, 29 carries, 150 rushing yards, 2 TDs, and no catches on the game there. And this Commanders team, like I think we talk about their defense not necessarily being a top tier defense, and in fact, it's not a top tier defense, but they've been better than what we maybe have been giving them credit for this year. The one big area that they have really struggled in all year long has been the run defense. That has been their Achilles heel this entire season, and we already know what Saquon Barkley is 100% capable of doing because if he's averaging 150 yards against you the 2 times you've played, at this point, there with the way that Jalen Hurts is banged up in this game, you would have to imagine they're just going to say, Saquon, we need you to do it again here, buddy. Like, we need you to absolutely take over. And he's going to be able to because we've already seen him do it twice. Like, if it was just like the first game of the season that he was capable of doing it and then he had like 80 yards the second time, it's going to be like, oh, okay, well, they've kind of figured him out just a little bit more, but they haven't.
No, but I mean, that's just it. Jalen Hurts is still going to have to do his part in this game because 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, great. We've seen what Jaden Daniels and this Commanders offense can do, and they get rolling, they will put up 30, 40 points. You're not going to be able to get that out of just Saquon Barkley. So Hurts is going to have to be mobile still. He's going to have to utilize his other weapons, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and find some way to still be scoring if for some reason this Eagles defense isn't able to stop Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and I feel like the really big difference in this game is going to be that Eagles defense. They've played this Commanders offense twice already this year. Vic Fangio seems to just get better and better when the pressure gets a little bit higher in games. And Jalen Carter, he's just a wrecking ball right now. Like, he's not part of the defensive player of the year talks, but that's because of like a half slow year. And then just like the second half of the year, he's just been otherworldly. Like, he is drafted to what, like, he is playing from what he was supposed to be drafted as, just as this absolutely game wrecking player. And this is going to be a very interesting game to watch. Again, it is in Philadelphia. You know, Philly is -6 point favorites in this one. The total is 47.5. So the Commanders have had two games of where they've been above those 50 points total. So they're expecting this to be a little bit more of a lower scoring game. But man, this is going to be a fun one to watch. You have a really high powered offense with the Commanders going up against a really tough defense. And then you have a really good offense with the Eagles that has just been kind of sputtering over these playoffs because they've frankly been a little bit banged up.
Yeah, and I mean, being a division matchup too, that always makes it so much better when it's the third meeting of the year, especially when the teams split the regular season. It makes it so much more entertaining and tends to be a little bit more rough and physical, and that has to be the key for the Eagles, period, is
Mm-hmm.
you have to get to Jaden Daniels. You can't let him escape. You can't let him move the pocket around and buy time, because if you do, that's when he's going to beat you.
Yeah.
This defense has to get physical early, win the trench battles, and get after Jaden Daniels.
You can't allow Jaden Daniels to become comfortable, because the second that you allow him to become comfortable is when he starts to pick your team apart. And you know, we often talk about with Cliff Kingsbury having that drop off during the year, and we saw a little bit of the drop off halfway through the year, but we haven't seen that dramatic of a drop off in his offense this particular season. And so it's been really, really fun to watch. And honestly, man, like, I'm excited as hell to watch this game. This is going to be a phenomenal game. And going back to what you were saying of how, like, whenever we see the third match in the playoffs between division rivals, it always means a little bit more, but it's not very often that we get to see those in the NFC or AFC championship game weekends. Like, this is
Yeah.
deciding who goes to the Super Bowl. And you just know for a fact that both teams are, they're sharpening the knives right now. They are ready to absolutely demolish and pretty much destroy each other. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'm going in this game. This is gonna be fun to watch. I'm excited for this game. I'm gonna be betting on the defense because I'm still a believer in, you know, you got to get to the dance, but the defense is what's really gonna be the key for you winning it. And I think the Eagles are going to be able to slow down Jane Daniels just enough that they can win this game. I do think the Eagles are going to win. I think the Commanders will be able to keep it close enough though that they'll cover that spread.
Yeah, for me, again, I know I always come across as the offense guy, but this is a game of where I really do think the elite defense, and I do think once you get to the playoffs, you need a top 10 defense to even be considered to be able to go to the Super Bowl, because once you get there, you know you're going up against the top 5 offense going into the Super Bowl, and you need to have a defense that is capable of slowing down the other team. And the Eagles right now, they have the capabilities of slowing down the other team. They were capable of doing it against the Packers. They were capable of doing it against the Rams. They should be capable of doing it against the Commanders, because again, at this point, the Commanders, it's really Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, and Terry McLaurin. That's pretty much their offense in terms of the skill position guys. Now, with the way that Eagles secondary has been playing this year, they should be able to cover all of those guys, and their linebackers have been playing phenomenal. Hell, their starting middle linebacker is in the defensive player of the year conversation. Like, I think the Eagles defense is going to take control of this game. Saquon Barkley is going to be able to do enough just to get it done. And since it's in Philadelphia, I do think the Eagles will have that little bit of extra juice playing at home, and they should be able to beat the Commanders. But I do think the Commanders will keep it close. If this was a 5-point spread, I might give it towards the Eagles, but I do think this should just be a phenomenal game. Next game up on our list, Buffalo Bills going into Arrowhead to take on the Chiefs, where Kansas City is minus 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, these are two very evenly matched teams. You look at the last 10 meetings between them, and there are several statistics as you go down. Time of possession, points scored, wins, and they're dead even. It's a dead heat.
Yep.
And so this is going to be... It's what we all expected from the AFC Championship game. It's going to be a great game. And Josh Allen went into Arrowhead earlier this season and did exactly what he's hoping to do again tomorrow and stole the game away from the Chiefs.
Was it going into Arrowhead? I thought it was at in Buffalo.
Oh, was it in Buffalo?
Yeah, it was in Buffalo.
It was in Buffalo. Either way.
But I know exactly what you mean. Like this is... Last week, we always had that conversation of both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, of two guys that haven't really been able to get it done in the playoffs. Less so Josh Allen as opposed to Lamar Jackson, but it was very much like Josh Allen has not been proven to be able to beat Mahomes when it matters. Like they've met, I think this is the fourth time these guys have met in the playoffs, and Mahomes has beat him every single time. There is only one confirmed Mahomes killer in the NFL, and that guy didn't even make the playoffs this year. And so for Allen, he needs to get it done this time, and because if he doesn't, there's going to be this very long conversation of, if it's not Joe Burrow, who's it going to be in terms of the AFC that's going to be able to take down Mahomes, unless they just have a really, really bad team. And even then, we can't count out the Chiefs because it's still Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like there's a lot of these kind of conversations. This game means more probably to Josh Allen than it does to Patrick Mahomes. That's my perspective on this, at least. Because if the Bills can't get this done, there's always going to be that conversation of, yeah, Josh Allen's going to be great. Can't beat Mahomes, though. And we often talked about, like, going back in the days, Roethlisberger was able to beat Brady. He didn't do it often, but he was still able to beat Brady in the playoffs. Same thing with Peyton Manning. Like, it was those three guys that were constantly battling each other for that AFC Championship game for years and years and years. And it kind of feels like we have that new trio of quarterbacks that are constantly battling each other with Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. And only two guys have been able to beat each other so far. But this Chiefs team, man, the end of the year, granted, they lost their final game of the season, but they didn't play anyone. They played really, really good football. Like those last 4 weeks of the season, they were playing damn good football. And yeah, they didn't play amazing last week against the Texans. I'm going to attribute that to them having 24 days of their starters not playing competitive football, and they just kind of need to get back into the swing of things. This is going to be a dogfight, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be something to watch for sure. You were mentioning how Josh Allen has to get it done, and the downside there is I feel like all that pressure is on Josh Allen and the Bills, whereas the Chiefs are going into this, as you said, playing great football. They can just sit back and go, we're just going to do what we do.
Yep.
Don't we're down by 6. Big deal. It's Josh Allen. It's the playoffs. We know he's going to choke. We're going to be able to get it done. We'll find a way. And so there will just be no panic or any sense of like distress on that Chiefs sideline. And I think that's going to be the key. Is I don't know if the Buffalo Bills, with as young as this team is, even though Josh Allen is leading them, I don't know if they're going to be able to stand up to that pressure and not fall apart at the end of the game and hand it to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and the other conversation that we talk about here is we talked about in the NFC Championship game, the one team that has the elite defense. And I think the Chiefs, again, they're going to be going to the Super Bowl off of the back of their defense again this year, because Spagnuolo, he calls a phenomenal defense and makes it really, really difficult for opponents. I think the Bills are going to keep this one relatively close. I think this is going to be a dogfight from start to finish. There might even be a point in this game where we're going to sit back and say, wow, the Bills might actually win this game. And then it's going to be the fourth quarter. It's going to be when the lights are the brightest. Mahomes just goes out there with that offense. He's going to find Travis Kelce for a few plays. He's going to find Hollywood Brown for a few plays. He's going to find Juju Smith-Schuster for a few plays, and they're going to win it. And then the Bills aren't going to either have enough time to do anything, or they're going to get the ball back, and they're just not going to be able to get it done in that moment. And so right there, I'm saying that the KC Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl, attempting this three-peat, and I think they actually covered that spread of 2.5.
Yeah, it's a tiny spread, so that makes sense. And yeah, you're right. It's going to be a dogfight. This is going to come down to the end. It so often does. The game will be decided likely within the final minute of play. And so it really will be whichever quarterback has the ball last and can play mistake free. We've talked about it in the past about how you don't bet against Brady. You also don't really bet against Patrick Mahomes at this point with how good this team has been playing. And so I agree. I think the Chiefs are going to win this game in dramatic fashion and continue their pursuit for that three-peat. And yeah, I think they'll cover that spread because a field goal feels about right.
It always was the conversation. You never bet against Belichick and Brady. And now for the last 5, 6 years, it's been you don't bet against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And there's very few times where that statement is ever proven wrong in the playoffs. It's going to be so exciting to watch. This is probably some of the best football of the season, just these two games. And I know I'm excited. I know you're excited. Hopefully, everyone watching this at home is excited. But that is our predictions for the championship Sunday games. I want to say thank you to Sterling. Thank you all to you for watching. We'll be back. Peace.